So I'm just going to be doing a little bit more prep for some future riding and just some desensitizing with Atlas. So I've got a pool noodle here. He's never seen a pool noodle, and I do want to eventually have him walk through like a maze of pool noodles where you have them all set up and he has to kind of walk through and they kind of touch him like at his chest area. So that's what I'm planning on doing with those later on, but I want to just introduce them to him right now. So I just let him target it with his nose, and I'm gonna just touch him on the chest, and then I'm clicking as I do that. So I have him target with his nose, click and feed, touch him on the chest with it, I'll click and feed, kind of rub it on his leg, click and feed. So same process, just a different object. So I've done that with my hands, with a saddle pad, like all different kinds of things. So I just want to make sure he's totally cool with this new thing, and it's very similar to like a whip or a stick type thing. It looks very similar, so he should generalize to this pretty quickly. Specifically, I want him okay with it moving because if it's windy, they might move a little bit, and I also want him to be okay with feeling it on his legs, his chest, and like his belly and his hindquarters, because that's where he'll feel it if he ends up going through like the little like car wash type thing. Like I'm not sure exactly what they're called where they walk through the noodles. So um, but yeah, this is just an introduction to it, so I want to make sure he's comfortable with it. So I'm just having him touch it and then going ahead and touching him with it. So he's just kind of using that as a little start button. I definitely could have used the cone at this point in my training progression and where I was at experimenting. I wasn't very consistent with using the cone. I probably should have been because I think that definitely helped him. So have him touch that cone, touch that start button like you saw with the saddle pad, and then go ahead and touch him with the object. But I did find also, now that it's been some time since this video has been taken, that he does do well if I'm presenting an object for him to touch that I'm going to put on him. He does well with that as well. So, but at this point, this is why I'm doing this because I'm experimenting at this point in time. So like now he can do that with the surface angle and the saddle and stuff like that, so that I don't always have to have that cone with me. So I would say if your horse is a little bit more on the spooky, scareder side, I would definitely just keep that cone and be consistent, especially in the beginning. And then later on, you can kind of start fading that out to where they could touch the object and then put it on them. So for Atlas, he seems fine. Like I probably could have done it with the cone, but he doesn't seem super concerned about this noodle in any way, shape, or form. So totally cool. And I think maybe he's seen it maybe once before, and maybe it was casters, but this is either his first time or he's seen it once before. It's hard to keep track, but I just want to make sure we hit all the points that we need, and then I also like to use the pool noodle to have him get used to something like going behind him, seeing something go behind him and feeling some touch there. So we worked on that a little bit as well. And I'm going to have him just target it. So I'm going to have him follow it. And then we're going to do that same process on the other side here. So once I've done that same process with the noodle on this left side, I'm going to go ahead and use the pad. So again, experimenting. So I've whipped out the cone because that's what we've been working with the saddle pad, and I'm just going to work on touching him in some different places with the pad. So we're going to work on the legs, having it kind of throw on the ground and moving around on the ground. So he's pretty solid with it on his back. Now I want him to get used to it kind of on the belly and on his legs, kind of lower to the ground now. So just to get him used to, like, if the pad were to fall off, or if it's like something could happen and the saddle is turning and it's closer to the ground, or it fell most likely going to fall off, or it's like blowing on the ground, or whatever it might be. Who knows? I just want him to get used to those things. Same thing, like potentially going to be similar to wearing a blanket because it'll be on the sides of his belly and underneath his belly. So just different things, get him used to stuff. Specifically for Atlas, he is a little finicky with things on his back legs. Like he's not bad. Like he's not gonna kick out or do anything like that. But he kind of picks his foot up and is like, I'd rather not have something touch there. So I do want him to get used to things touching his hind leg and having a good experience with that. Um, so that's something that's important for him. Lots of domestic horses don't need this, don't need all of this, but Atlas isn't domestic. He needs all of the desensitizing and getting used to things as he possibly can without drilling it too much. So I just wanted to work on just a little bit of different desensitizing with this pad. So again, I'm waiting for him to touch that cone, and then I'm just kind of tossing it on his foot. And I've done that a few times, and I'm going to let it just kind of rest on his foot for a second, and then I'm clicking while it's on there, and then taking it off. So that's the process. Still the pad, I'm clicking while the pad is on. So now I've just gotten a lead rope out, and I'm going to just put that Velcro through the end of like the snap of the lead rope, so that I have a little bit of a connection there, so I can start dragging this pad around. I like that he's being curious here. I didn't ask him to go and investigate this pad. I like that he's got a paw at it and he's interested in it. I'm just gonna kind of wait and until he's kind of done, and then I'll ask him to come back over here to the cone. I'm not gonna be like, oh no, don't do that. I want this. This is a great sign. Look how he's stepping on it. That's fantastic. So I'm gonna go ahead and reinforce him, even though it's not necessarily the behavior that I want right now. I love that he's being curious. And for this horse specifically, I want to reinforce times where he's being curious on his own because he's really not that type of horse. He's very like, not really interested, don't want to go investigate anything, complete opposite of Caster. So I want to reinforce those times, even if I didn't necessarily ask for it. But then he did obviously listen and come back over here, so we're just going to play with the pad a little bit more. This just gives me a little bit more space so I'm not really close to that hind leg in case he did want to kick out. So I have that space and I can start dragging this pad on the ground too. So again, pad is touching his hind leg, I'm clicking, taking it off, and then feeding him. And then I'll wait for him to start another repetition by touching that cone. And I'll wait a little bit longer, I'm clicking and then taking it off and feeding him. So that looks great. I really like what he's doing here. I like how relaxed he looks. I like his body language. I like his head and neck elevation. He's got his ears back just listening to where the pad is. So overall, not too bad. So I did that same process on this right side with the pad, and now I've gone and brought out the bear again. So I'm just going to work with this bear a little bit more. Same process again with that start button as the cone. I'm just going to bring it up closer to his back and start making progress toward putting the bear on him. So I'm just really paying attention to his body language. How does he feel about the bear? Making sure he's totally cool with that. And I do have like some twine wrapped around the bear, so it's a little bit easier for me to hold on to him. And he didn't seem worried at all about the bear. Some horses might be, it might look a little scary to them. He seemed totally cool with that, and we've already reviewed all of that, and he's been introduced to it in that last video with the bear. So now I'm just going to move it around a little bit differently and just kind of build up to getting it on his back, because my goal is to have the bear on his back while he's moving around and then have the bear falling off both sides while he's moving. That's really what I want, and just to kind of gauge where he's at and how he feels about having what is similar to a rider on his back, or as close as I'm going to get as a simulation, because the bear is quite a bit smaller than me, but it still has got arms and legs and it moves around, so it's just a good test to have. And have it kind of touch his chest and move around and just kind of move around his legs. Just again, more desensitizing stuff for him, just getting used to things. Lay over his back. That's kind of my first step. So you saw me just kind of bringing the bear up to him. Now I'm having it lay across his back for just a second. Again, time matters. We don't want to just throw the bear up there and then go give him a treat, because you saw that mistake I made with the saddle pad was I put it on and I was like, oh, he's fine. And then I went to go give him a treat and it was on for too long. And then he got scared about the length of time it was on him. So I don't want to do that same mistake with the bear. I just want to put it on, click, take it off, and then start increasing the amount of time that bear can go on. There, I'm holding it up a little bit higher. Really, I wanted to make sure that he wasn't afraid being up on his back, so like the seeing like the shoulders and the head being up there and being having something high above his back. He's pretty good with that, like with the mounting block. I've done some mounting block stuff with him before, but he is a little nervous with that, with the fence specifically, and I think it's more of a claustrophobic issue than I'm afraid of things high above me issue. Usually it can be a high above thing. They don't really like that. It could be a predator trying to like jump on them. So I just want to make sure that he's cool with this. And for Atlas, I want to make sure that I'm splitting those two things apart as well. So I'm working on that, having that pretend rider being above him without him being next to the fence, and then work on the fence separately, and then I can combine the two later on, because I do want to do that and have me sit on him from the fence before I get on him. So those are just some things that I'm taking apart and breaking down the lessons, and then I'll put back together later. So same process on this other side, just kind of throwing the bear around. But this is kind of just all those little baby steps to get to where we want. So I'm just going to cut up a little bit of this because it's kind of the same thing, but I want to show that I have the bear really high up above him, and he's got his head nice and low, and then I'm just kind of taking the bear off and throwing it on the ground, and I want him to be comfortable with all those things. Things come on him, they fly off, and it's just not a big deal. I'm not going to sneak around him. I'm not going to like, oh, he doesn't like that, I'm not going to do it, but I don't want to also scare him. I want to build things up really tiny pieces so that he is comfortable with it so then I can throw the bear around. I didn't just start like that. I let him sniff it. I reinforced him for showing interest in it. I brought it closer and closer and closer while he was again remaining calm, and then I can get to this point where I'm throwing it on him and throwing it off. So all these little baby steps matter.